We'll round out this introduction to data modeling in JSON by taking a look at how you might model relationships in your documents, both one-to-one and one-to-many. Once again, this is the conceptual model we're working with, and in color are the entity relationships that we're focusing on in our examples. Of course, you might make different decisions here. Just notice that there are relationships between these entities, some of them implying a one-to-one relationship, some of them implying one-to-many. So how can you express relationships in JSON? Well, there's two basic choices you can make. You can embed, meaning one document contains its related entity or entities, or you could refer, one document contains the partial or full document ID of a related entity or entities. We've looked at factors that influence your physical data modeling choices. Let's do a quick review. First, document size. How much time is it going to take to load a document? And if it's mobile, how much power is that going to use? Second, what about the update atomicity? Must all these attributes change together? Third, update complexity. Should any of this data be duplicated? If so, why? And how will it come back into sync? Or is it necessary for it to come back into sync? Is it merely a snapshot? What about the strength of entity relationships? Does all this data conceptually belong together? And what about the complexity of code mapping? Would a particular document make sense once you tried to express it in code? So how could you model a one-to-one relationship? Well, you can do it, as we've said, by embedding or reference. In this example, we're looking at a customer and an order. So will loading an order and a customer in a single document perhaps save on mobile power? Will this data update in the current session? Is this data somehow uniquely tied to this order, or is this data that would be identical across multiple orders? If the data ends up being duplicated into an order, does it matter when and how it will be synchronized again? Do you expect a customer to submit only one order? Really? And how are these related in your underlying code? Again, these are questions, not firm answers, because your context is always going to vary at least a bit. Let's take a look at one-to-many relationships. First, should you embed? As here we've embedded a series of products in an items array inside of our order. Will this document potentially ever exceed 20 meg? How many products do we let them order? Do you need low traffic to preserve mobile power? Is that an argument to join everything into a single document retrieved one time? Or does it make sense to get multiple different documents and work with them independently in your code? Must all this data update atomically? Now in Couchbase 4.5, we can both get and set at the document or attribute level, but if you have multiple related attributes that must update atomically, then you need those to be in a single document. Next, how well would something of this shape map into your code? Of course, having a single object array inside of a document easily maps to code, but what if you're multiply nesting arrays? Do you end up creating more complexity than you want to pull back out again when you try to map this to a corresponding domain object? Is any of this data duplicate? And is it truly duplicated data, or is it a snapshot of some external data, in which case should there be a timestamp along with it? So what are some questions to ask about whether you should reference in a one-to-many relationship? Well, do you need small documents, perhaps for fast response time in a mobile environment? Is this shape perhaps closer to your object model in code? Are you aiming for a one-to-one relationship of entities in your documents with underlying classes in an object model? Reference documents can be very quickly accessed from Couchbase. Remember, Couchbase is memory first. Multi-get operations are very efficient, and Nickel can join documents by document ID on the server before they get to the client. Because no data is duplicated in this scenario, it does mean that all the data updates consistently. How then would you go about modeling one-to-many relationships? By reference with partial duplication. Do you want to denormalize? Do you feel like relaxing a bit? Well, if you copy needed data into one document, does that save resources? Does that increase speed? It very well may. Can you add timestamps and sync later? Does that make sense in this scenario? And is this truly duplicate data, as we keep pointing out, or is it merely a snapshot made meaningful by its timestamp? So what are the general guidelines to wrap this up? First off, design for your hot path. In advance, you want to know what is going to be likely the most popular data in your system. Shape your data accordingly. When might you embed data in the same document? Well, if you must have an atomic right of a set of related data of a set of attributes, they should be in the same document. And if your data and cardinality are relatively small overall, such as a snapshot of items in an order, embedding is likely the way to go. So when might you refer from one document to another? Well, if you need to access this same data by multiple different keys. Or if your data and cardinality are relatively large, such that you could end up with overly large documents if you tried to rely on embedding. And if the data set is frequently updated, it's easier to update smaller documents. When in doubt, however, embed your data because you've eliminated a lookup or a join. In our lab, we're challenging you to implement your own physical models, create your own JSON documents from a new conceptual model that looks like this. Spend some time building out these documents. Play with the issues of should I embed, should I refer, and how big might these files get? Am I duplicating? Am I snapshotting? Do I need to add timestamps? It'll help make all of these why questions we're trying to pose for you a bit more real and effective in your own projects going forward. So what have you learned here? First, JSON's flexibility provides many ways to physically model your data. You can embed local data, you can embed with duplicate or snapshot remote data, you could refer to remote data, and you could always add data to a document ID and its attributes, putting more information in a metadata fashion inside the document ID itself. Numerous factors guide your data modeling. How large can your documents get, and what impact does this have on the behavior of the other assets in your system? What about atomicity? Must a set of data change together? What about complexity? Can this data be duplicated? If so, why would you do so? Is it a snapshot or is it a duplicate? Do you need timestamps? What is the strength of entity relationships? Conceptually, are you designing a coherent application? And last, what about the complexity of code mapping? Would the documents that you're designing also make sense in the underlying code? If you'd like to learn more about Couchbase and learn more about data modeling, first, check out training.couchbase.com and also check out blogs.couchbase.com. In particular, take a look at the Advanced Data Modeling article by Kirk Kirkconnell available on the Couchbase blogs. Thanks for taking some time with Couchbase to learn more about data modeling in JSON.